antenna's end. A brief red spark spat from the antenna. The innards of the lock clicked. This time, when Kit turned the knob, the door came open a crack. With great caution, he opened the door a bit more, peered out, then opened it all the way and motioned Nita to follow him. Together, they stepped out in the hall, much like the elevator corridor in their own world, but dark and silent. The elevator, Kit said inwardly, not wanting to break that ominous quiet. Do you trust it? No. Know where the stairs are? Down the way we came, past the elevator. The door to the main stairway had to be coerced into opening by the same method as the door to the roof. When they stepped through it, Kit spent another moment getting it to lock again, then stepped over the banister and looked down at story after story of switchback stairs. It could be worse, Nita said. We could be going up. It will be worse, Kit said. If the world gate stays at this level, we're going to have to come back up. They headed down. It took a long time. The few times they dared stop to rest, Kit and Nita heard odd muffled noises through the walls, vaguely threatening scrapes and groans and rumbles, the kind of sounds heard in nightmares. The stairs were as dark as the corridor had been, and it was hard to sit in the corner of a landing, rubbing aching legs, with only the light of Nita's wand to argue with the blackness that towered above and yawned below as those sounds got louder. They quickly lost count of how many stories downward they'd gone. All the landings looked the same, and all the doors from them opened off into the same pitch blackness, until finally Kit eased one open as he had eased open scores of others, and abruptly stood very still. He put his hand out behind him. Nita, the wand. She passed it to him. It dimmed in his hand from moonfire to foxfire, a faint silver glimmer that he held out the door as he looked around. It's all that shiny stone like the other lobby. There should be a way down into the station then. Nita's hair stood up on end at the thought. Kit, you saw what happened to helicopters. Do you really want to meet a train? Let's go out on street level, okay? He gulped and nodded. Which way? There's a door out onto 45th Street. Come on.
I really want to see what happened to the trains, though.
She slipped out, and Kit followed with the wand. Its pale light reached just far enough ahead to gleam off the glass wall at the end of the corridor. Near it was the down escalator, frozen dead. They made their way softly down it, then across the slick floor and out the glass doors to the street. It was nearly as dark outside as it had been inside. A night without a hint of moon or stars. The air down there wasn't as chill as it had been on the building's roof, but it stank of dark city smells, exhaust, spilled gasoline, garbage, and soot. The gutter was clogged with trash. They stepped out to cross 45th. No! Nita hissed, startled into speech, and dragged Kit back into the dark of the doorway. Pale yellow-brown light flickered down the street, got brighter. A second later, with a snarl of its engine, a big yellow checker cab hurled itself past them, staring in front of it with headlight eyes burned down to yellow threads of filament, eyes that looked somehow as if they could see. But the cab seemed not to notice them. Its snarl diminished as it plunged down the street, leaving a whirl of dirty paper and dead leaves in its wake. Kit coughed as its exhaust hit them. That was alive, he said, when he got his breath back, the same way the helicopter was. Nita made a miserable face. Let's get out of here, she said. Kit nodded. She led him off to their left, through the Helmsley Spear building, which should have been bright with gold-leaf statuary. Here it was gray with soot, and the carving stared down with such looks of silent malice that Nita refused to glance up more than that once. She hoped for some more encouraging sight as they came onto 46th Street and looked up Park Avenue. The hope was vain. The avenue stretched away and slightly upward for blocks, as it did in their own world, vanishing in the murk. But the divider between the uptown and downtown lanes, usually green with shrubbery, had become one long tangle of barren thorn bushes. The old-fashioned red and green traffic lights burned low and dark, as if short on power, and no matter how long one watched, they never changed from red. The shining glass and steel office buildings that had lined the avenue in their Manhattan were grimy shells here, the broad sidewalks before them cluttered with rubbish. Nothing moved anywhere except far up Park, where another pair of yellow eyes waited at the corner. Those eyes made Nita nervous. This way, she said. She hurried past a dirty granite facade, full of still doors and silent windows. Kit followed close, and Fred with him, both looking worriedly at everything they passed. Nita was doing her best to keep herself calm as they turned the corner onto 47th. It can't all be as bad as the helicopter, she told herself, and nothing really bad has happened to us yet. It was just the shock of the... She jumped back into the shadow of a building on hearing a clapping sound so loud she felt sure the helicopter's mate was coming for them. Fred and Kit huddled terrified into that shadow too, and it took a few seconds for any of them to find the source of the sound. Not more than 5 or 6 feet from them, a pigeon had landed. A sooty dark one, cooing and strutting and head-bobbing in a perfectly normal fashion. It walked away from them, muttering absently, intent on its own pursuits. Kit poked Nita from behind. Not a warning, a teasing poke. Getting jumpy, huh? Yeah, well, you were the one who said. The lightning stroke of motion not 6 feet away knocked the merriment right out of them. What had seemed a perfectly ordinary fire hydrant, dull yellow with rust stains and peeling paint, suddenly cracked open and shot out a long, pale, ropey tongue like a toad's. The pigeon never had a chance. Hit side on, the bird made just one strangled, gobbling noise before the tongue was gone again, too fast to follow, and the wide, horizontal mouth it came from was closed again. All that remained to show that anything had happened was a slight bulge under the metallic-looking skin of the fire hydrant. The bulge heaved once and was still. Nita bit her lip. Behind her, she could feel Kit start shaking again. I feel sorry for the next dog that comes along, he said. I hope you don't mind if I cross the street. Kit headed out of the shadow. I think I'll join you, Nita said. She backed out of range of that tongue before she started across the street herself. There was no time to move, to scream, even to think. Kit was halfway across the street with his eye on that fire hydrant, his head turned away from the big yellow checker cab that was maybe 6 feet away and leaping straight at him. A flash of brilliance struck Nita like a blow, and did the same for the cab so that it swerved to its left and knocked Kit sideways and down. The cab roared on by, engine racing in frustration, evidently too angry to try for another pass. But something about it, maybe the savage sidelong look it threw Nita out of its burned-out eyes as it squealed down the corner of 46th and Madison, something made Nita suspect that it would not forget them. She ran out into the street and bent over Kit, not sure whether she should try to move him. "It's all right," Kit said, groaning softly as he worked at getting up.
You were just hit by a car. How is it all right?
Nita slipped hands under his arms to help. Fred did it. Are you all right? Came the frantic thought as Fred appeared in front of Kit's face. Did I hurt you? Did I emit anything you can't take? I took out all the ultraviolet. Oh no, I forgot the cosmic rays again. Kit managed to smile, though not much of one. His face was skinned and bruised where one cheekbone had hit the pavement. Don't worry about it, Fred. That thing would have done a lot worse to me than a few cosmic rays if it had hit me the way it wanted to. He stood up, wincing. It got my leg some, I think. Nita bent down to look at Kit's left leg and sucked in her breath. His jeans were torn, and he had a straight horizontal gash 6 inches or so below the knee, which was bleeding freely. Does it feel deep? No. It just hurts a lot. I think it was the cab's fender. There was a jagged piece sticking out of the chrome. Listen, Fred, thanks. You're sure I didn't hurt you? You people are so fragile. A little gamma radiation will ruin your whole day, it seems. I'm fine. But I gotta do something about this leg, and then we gotta get moving again and get to the dark book. Nita looked over at the fire hydrant.
And then when you get back to the normal world, burn the dark book.
Fear boiling in her. Casually, as if this was something it did many times a day, the hydrant cracked open and spat something out onto the sidewalk. A desiccated-looking little lump of bones and feathers. Then it got up and waddled heavily down to a spot about 50 feet farther down the block and sat down again. And I thought it couldn't all be bad. Together, as quickly as they could, 2 small, frightened-looking figures and a spark like a lost star hurried into the shadows and vanished there.
Fred is a lost star.